Hi, welcome back to another episode of Transforming Trauma to Triumph. I'm your host, Diana Min, and I'm here with our wonderful guest, Miss Misha Almira, who's a modern breatharian. Hi, Misha.
Hi, Diana. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, it's so great to have you here. For our audience who isn't familiar with you or your work, can you just please let us know what is a modern breatharian? Sounds exotic.
So, uh, I work with prana, which is quantum energy, life force energy, and work with others to help basically reformulate reality in a new way. So, finances, mindset, energy, relationships, spiritual awakening. I mean, it's all encompassing, and it's just a process of going in and helping kind of reprogram a nervous system in a way that works for us.
Beautiful. That's amazing. Um, Tell me, how did you get started in this? Was it your own journey of just healing yourself through this process that
Yes,
happened?
absolutely. I'll just start from the beginning. I was born an empath, so very sensitive, psychic, highly psychic, could could see future, could hear people's thoughts. My father was alcoholic, and so I absorbed a lot of energy just naturally, a lot of heavy guilt, shame, self-loathing, and it was just something that happened when I got around people. And
Mhm.
so I found dance at the age of 2. And I started, that was a way to kind of move energy that was stuck. And as a young girl, you don't know anything. You're just kind of picking up what's going on. And so it was easy to direct all the self-loathing and shame and all that into body image. And at the age of 16, I became bulimic and started just this whole process of trying to perfect my body, which was never good enough.
Mhm.
And at the age of 17, I actually became very sick because of the bulimia, because of the getting my electrolytes out of balance and not nourishing myself enough. I was dancing about 8 hours a day, and I was drinking shakes and maybe a chicken breast, having that. And that was all I had. So I really threw my body out of whack. I got very, very sick and depressed. And um, at that point, didn't want to dance anymore. And that was the reason for living. And so I went into this whole depression and just kind of lost myself in that. And so that's, I actually did, one day I was there with my dad. He was also very depressed. And I remember this moment where I felt this energy come in. And my thought that came with that was, you should kill yourself. You don't deserve to live. And this was actually after I had gotten better physically, but was still depressed because I had quit dance, didn't want to dance, didn't want to do that anymore. So I got up, walked to the kitchen, and took all the pills I could find.
Wow.
And thank goodness they weren't pills that hurt me, but I just went to bed and stayed asleep until the next morning and woke up kind of surprised that I was still there. Um,
Wow.
and so that is where I started really, struggling with uh, food and the relationship with it and the body image. And I had no idea what good nutrition was at that point. I went to the doctor. They put me on Prozac. They wanted to put me in an inpatient care, but I just begged my mom to not do that.
Yeah.
Uh, got on Prozac, and it was like all of that was just kind of swept under the rug and forgotten about. And I didn't dance for a few years after that.
Mhm.
And maybe about 5 years later, I entered through a series of synchronistic events. I
Mhm.
entered into an ashram
Mhm.
and to learn meditation, to teach meditation. and to I ultimately took monk vows, and that was when my real healing started happening. That was the point where I was able to get off of Prozac, and really get a good diet, a vegetarian diet going, meditating, yoga. But that was just the beginning. Yeah, that was just the beginning. So this whole period of ashram was the best part of my life. It was like heaven on earth. It was a moment of, just bringing in, it was a space where I could actually address everything that was swept under the rug, everything that had caused that, or that trauma, and had kind of been stored in my body, because it wasn't addressed. Now I was in a place where anything could come out. You could say the ugliest parts, and it was supportive, and an environment that people held you in a sacred space and loved you. And so as that started coming up, it was so refreshing. And it was just a place of deep healing. And then it kind of turned. It got infiltrated and turned into what I would consider to be cult trauma. And that's a different story. But that's where it started, really went into a new phase of trauma that took about 10 years for me to work out, and really had a dark night of the soul, and went into an even deeper depression that just some days, months, weeks, I couldn't get out of bed at all.
Wow.
And so, there was a great awakening that happened during that period, but a handful of us went to this, it's called a Trinity table. I'm not sure if you've heard of it, but it's literally a portal, and you lay on this table and it spins, and there's a pyramid, and it creates an electromagnetic field. And so it was really amazing. We had this expansion, but that's when the energy started getting a little twisted, and there was physical abuse, there was like mind games, and so this heaven on earth turned into something that was very twisted, and many of us didn't understand, and we wouldn't have done any of the things that we did, but it was, one of the teachers woke up and said that he was the returning teacher. He turned into Christ right in front of me. It was very confusing, and many of us put our trust into, or kind of gave our power away to this leader. And so there was a lot wrapped up in that, and abuse of money, abuse of, things that have gone on with other cults. And so that took me into another whole other aspect of trauma that needed to actually be healed. And since then, I've seen a whole other perspective of it, but at the time it was very confusing.
Right. Wow, it's something, so sacred to abuse, like you're healing, right? You're unfolding, you're being told it's a safe, sacred space, and then for that to turn into something so dark is so unfortunate. But luckily you were able to kind of escape it and find your own way back to your light again. Tell me a little bit about that journey. You said it took you about like 10 years to kind of unravel that. Were you still at the ashram for another 10 years, or was that how long
no, I was there about 6 years and then left, and I just couldn't cope in reality. Became agoraphobic, still had the body issues, the struggle with food. I mean, all of this it just came, crashing down. And do I trust the higher power now? Do I trust Christ? I mean, I trusted that to be It was just this deep, dark, who am I? What is true? So I started working with a doctor in California. He did kind of brain entrainment, neuroacoustic programming. From there, I was led to shamanic healers, and they started removing all of this trauma that originally started the depression, the suicidal thoughts, the body loathing, all of that, just started removing it bit by bit, and eventually started getting into the really deep, dark betrayal, God betrayal, higher source betrayal, and all of that. And it was just like, as these were leaving, that power was coming back in, that peace was coming back in. And after working with the shaman healers for a long time, I was able to feel free from that PTSD, the depression. I was able to go out and interact with people, and it started small. There were some days all I could do was go outside and look at flowers or play with my cat. And that was where I had to start. It was accepting where I was at, taking baby steps and learning to love self again, and love source, and love divine love. These things that we automatically trust growing up, like that I had to learn to love and trust that again.
Yeah.
And then I trained through shamanic energy healing medicine through the Andean mysticism lineage. That was amazing and beautiful. I worked with plant medicine, and I remember one ceremony was all working on my brain. And I could feel it. I could feel the synapses coming back on board. I could feel the balancing happening. And that was from those years of bulimia where it was just thrown out of whack, and the years of, so it was amazing and beautiful. And then I was guided. I had an awakening in 2015. And then a few years later, I went through a lot of grief over losing babies, miscarriage, and all of that came out to be healed. And I lost loved ones, and it was all just this transition of loss after another. And that kicked up the struggle with food again, and that backsliding. And it's interesting because that happened so that it would finally be healed. And that's where I was led to Breatharian. And I started learning how to nourish myself with prana and with quantum energy. It's the same thing with light and with divine love and all of that, instead of food, instead of this constant struggle, with the relationship that I had around food.
Yeah.
And so that was all able to be healed slowly by just bringing in more light into those spaces that had been judged and shamed and pushed away. And so.
Wow. What a beautiful, beautiful journey. What a tough, challenging journey, but also beauty in that you came to find your light again and to come back into your power. And, and all the, I've worked a lot with sacred plant medicine. I've done maybe like 70 ayahuasca ceremonies at this point. So I know.
Amazing.
Yeah, I know the healing power of the sacred shamanic work. And, shamanic healing was actually my first entryway into my healing journey as well. So I know that work is not easy, and having to really be with these dark parts of yourself and sitting with them and processing them and facing them. And it's the only way to heal them. The only way out is in. And that journey that you so eloquently shared with us I know was not like a smooth journey by any means, but it's and kind of also why we're here, right? Wanting to bring people on here that have really done the work, that have really walked this path, that have really struggled in their lives to really have overcome it, and really understanding that it takes, that inner strength within to be like, I'm going to live to fight another day. Because I mean, so many points on that journey of, I can feel how, desolate some days seem to be, and what was it that was inside of you that was like, I'm gonna stick around and try to see what tomorrow brings me, even though tonight seems so dark. Tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah. So this last period of depression, this voice came in that said, dive into this, face it, dive deep into this. And that was terrifying, because I felt like many of us do, felt like this is going to consume me if I do that. But when I stopped and I listened and I said, okay, because what other choice do I have right now? I said, oh, okay. And I just had the intention to dive into it and be with it. And I took a day. I think I just went and I sat outside for, I don't even know how long. It seemed like a long time. And I just dove into that. And that is when it started to release. That's when the healing really started to unfold, is when it's those moments, like you said, that you're sitting with that. You're sitting with those deep, dark places that you're terrified of. But that's when the healing happens. And that's when that depression that has haunted me most of my life really started to unravel and release. And, all the grief came up.
Yeah.
And we don't have to know where this grief is coming from. We don't have to know what the story is. We just cry it out. We scream it out. And we have to be willing to face it, really face it. Face those dark parts that we've run from. Because when we do, they're not so bad.
Yeah.
It might feel painful, but they're not as bad as we think.
Yeah.
And I remember feeling like I'm bigger and I'm stronger than anything that is coming up to scare me, and we have to, like, we tap into that in those moments of grace, that I am bigger and I'm more powerful than anything that arises in my life. And just knowing that, and knowing that everything is here to teach us how to love, everything is here for us to grow into more, and to grow, to understand that all there is really love. Right. So
Beautiful. Wow. Sorry, I'm just receiving all of that. So beautiful. Yeah, I think, like you said, this fear of the pain is actually far worse than the actual pain. And so, I do feel like a lot of times we are, or most people are, trying so hard to get away from that suffering, that pain, that grief, that sadness, whatever it is. And we spend a lot of time in distraction, trying to escape it, right? Whether it's drugs, alcohol, food, whether it's, people, relationships, whatever it is, TV, social media, in order to numb ourselves and escape from the uncomfortability of dealing with that pain. And not knowing that what we're actually doing is we're exacerbating the problem. We're making it worse. We're creating, we're brushing it under the rug and creating a whole mountain of it that we then carry with us until we're ready to face it, right? And so, I always tell my clients, like, healing is not easy, or everyone would do it. But it's worth it. It's worth it. The joy, the happiness, the liberation, the freedom that you feel now from having gone through everything that you've been through, having sat with your darkness, facing it, feeling it, right? There are times where, you know, and I can relate to you being in those dark nights of the soul, being in those really tough ceremonies, and things are coming up, and like I can almost feel as it like comes up. And there is that, like you said, this that surrender, right? Having to just dive into it and being like, okay, like I am going to drown in this, and that's okay, because there is a part of you that does need to almost die with it, right? There are parts of us that need to be released with it, because we hold on to this pain, this suffering is almost like a part of our identity, and there is a part of us that does need to be purged with those emotions.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think, everything that we're running from and all the suffering is from running from and trying to escape it. And that deepest fear underneath all fears is afraid to die. We're afraid of death. So when we dive into those deep, dark, scary places, that's really what we're facing. Like you said so beautifully. I mean, we really do have to come to a place that we're willing to die. A part of us is willing to die, and when we go through that, we realize how much beauty and power comes out of that. It's the phoenix rising out of the ashes. You got to be willing to put everything into that fire, burn it up, and then you come out as your whole self. So,
Right.
and so many of us are just terrified to do the work. We're terrified that we're going to die, even if that's not a conscious thing. Like these parts in shadow, a lot of times they're so in the dark, they're so deep down that we don't even realize that we haven't dealt with that. I didn't even realize that I hadn't dealt with miscarriage. I was fine. I cried for a day. I was fine with that. But when I really started going into that, there was so much healing that I had to do. I had to have memorial for this. I had to really feel all the unforgiveness and the guilt around it and the shame around it. And I had to realize what was lost. And so many times people will say, oh no, I don't really need to go there. I don't need to do that. I've already done all that work. Right.
I love when people say that.
Yeah. Yeah. And that, but I feel so angry all the time, but I've already done that work.
I've already dealt with that. I'm like, no.
Yeah. Let's explore that.
Yeah, and I've had those moments too in my life where I'm like, oh yeah, I've dealt with that, and then like head into a ceremony and there it is again, or have a dream, right, or have a download, or have something just all of a sudden trigger, and all of a sudden I'm like enraptured in it again, and I'm like, oh my god, I thought that was done. But realizing that even though maybe big chunks of it were let go of, or we think we process the majority of it, there's always these little remnants left, right? And how I kind of see it visually sometimes too is it's like little crevices like in our being, and like they're just like these little like they're tucked into these little crevices, and it's like having to like really open up in these like ways to allow light to get into even the darkest parts of who we are, of our fears, of our doubts, of our of our beingness, to really get in there and get all of these remnants out. And I love that you talk about divine love, because I feel that love, when it comes in, is what pushes all of those dark remnants out.
Yeah.
And so even sometimes people run from love as seeing it because of the pain that love has caused them, and or trying to escape opening up to receive more love, not realizing that love will actually heal them. Right? That love will actually push out the remaining darkness that's in there, and bring more wholeness into the being.
Yeah, so beautiful. Yeah. And what's funny is that the more that we push out the stuff that's stuck, the crystallized parts, the stuck parts, then the more capacity we have to receive that love, right? And when you feel that, there's nothing that is more beautiful, and you don't need anything besides that. You're just full. So Yeah, it's funny because we're scared to release all that, but when we do, we can just feel more love. But yeah,
Beautiful. I love it. Tell us a little bit more about the work that you're doing now that, kind of like what you like, are you taking clients or what kind of work, if people are interested in kind of connecting with you and diving into working with you, what does that look like right now?
so I work one-on-one coaching, and it's holistic coaching, it's energy work. So when someone comes in, we talk about, okay, where are you feeling stuck? Where are you feeling imprisoned? Where are you feeling bound? Let's talk about that. And then we go into it, and we start working with prana, and to release these blocks. We start working with it on all levels. So energetic level, the emotional level, the physical level, the mind. And we go in one by one according to, I'll talk with the client and find out, where is it that you feel like you really want to focus in on? And where do you want to start? And we'll start with that. But ultimately, we're going to be working on all of it,
Yeah.
and just bringing that life force in so fully that we're able to reprogram the nervous system, because our nervous systems are designed to work, as perfect machines. But when we have circuitry that's off, or we have blocks in certain areas, or you know our organs, some are having to work more than others, and they're not working in this harmonious flow, we just find that we're out of balance. We find that we're feeling like nothing's working in my life, because when we're out of balance in one area, we're out of balance in all areas. And so by bringing that life force in, by bringing that divine intelligence in, it can start informing, and with plant medicine, you have it, that experience of the light codes, the
Yeah.
information that comes in and informs everything. Cellular, we can clean out the cells, we can reprogram those cells, and then everything else just starts, being informed in a healthy way. We
Wow.
can work with, we're 90% water, and
Mhm.
it water can be programmed with
Yeah.
love, with information. And so when you start working with the chronic light codes, all of that starts just really coming on board in a way that is miraculous. You find that, oh, I feel so good. How do I feel so good? How do I have so much energy? Because you're sourcing from your own energy source, from divine life force, from quantum energy. And
Wow.
so in the sessions, we work with that. And yeah, it can just, you can see miraculous results. So it's a lot of fun. And
Yeah, I can imagine. Um, so if somebody who's listening to this right now is looking to maybe take that first step into their healing journey, what is something that you can share with them so that they can start to maybe implement today? Um, any tools or practices or whatever it is that you have?
yeah, so, just a very fun one to get in touch with the chi, or the energy flow, is
Yeah.
I'll have people take their hands like this, and just intend to feel that chi, or that life force energy, and just kind of take your hands in and out, and you'll start feeling maybe tingling,
Mm,
and you'll start feeling maybe a little resistance the closer your hands get. Can you feel that?
yeah.
Like sometimes you can feel a little ball of energy,
Mm,
and so you want to just start trying to expand that. And you can do this, you can expand that ball, and then you can actually start moving it around.
mm,
And then you can actually start, when you really get a feel for it, it'll start moving on its own. And this is a beautiful way to just really get conscious and in touch with that, your own chi and your own energy. And you can get it built up. And when you can really feel that tingling, that sometimes it feels warm.
Yeah, it's really.
Yeah. And then you can take that and just kind of wash it over. And sometimes you can feel, certain areas that want a little more attention, and just let your hands go that. And it'll start informing you right away. You can start feeling that. You feel it?
I do. I've been told my chi is really big. So I'm like I'm kind of like sweating a little bit right now. But
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, I noticed that when we got on the call that you're very bright. You have a lot of life force.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
I know. Sometimes it feels like it's too much. I'm like, turn it down.
I know. Sometimes you gotta pull it in depending on where you are. But these Tai Chi masters, people can't even touch them because they have so much chi built up. I think that's just miraculous. I mean,
wow. So, personal question for me, how would I turn it down? Am I supposed to turn it down?
Oh, no. No, I just sometimes
turn it up.
You can expand it. You want to expand it, but I'm saying if you're in an area, like say you're in a crowded store or room and you're feeling like you want to just kind of pull that energy in, you can do that. You can pull it in, or you can expand it, just depending on where you're at.
If I want more space, I'll expand it.
Yes.
Okay.
Or you can pull it in if you want. So yeah, but
that's really cool. Okay, so I was actually just in a ceremony like 2 weekends ago, and I was, my intention going in was like I was looking for more. I was looking for more everything. I'm from New York, so that's kind of it's kind of our MO. What's next? What's next?
Bring it on.
More, yeah. And I was told, she said, "Who are you waiting for? Is this not enough for you?" And it was like I had been asking for permission to receive more of myself, more of my light, more of my chi, right? More. And obviously feeling very ungrateful for all that I already have and that being enough, but also then starting to receive more. So, as it was coming down, the light coming down into my body, it was so much, and almost like kind of like showing me like, you're not ready to receive all that you are. It's so much, right? So just you talking about this chi right now, like, I guess my question is more like, do we get to a point where we're able to receive all that we are, where it's not too much? Is that part of the work, or the work that you do as far as like almost kind of priming the body to receive more of the light?
Definitely. Yeah. So a lot of times, well, with starting with some people, if they have maybe a lot of toxins in their body, they're going to feel it's going to feel intense to them to bring a lot of light into areas. And so we work with bringing more like higher pranic foods in, greens, a lot of chlorophyll, and we'll work with that. We'll work with in areas. I think though, what you're asking more is say someone that has so much like yourself that is saying, okay, more and more and more. What we work with that is that we bring all that intense energy, we draw it up, and then we draw it up into the higher centers in the body, and then we bring it back deep inside of us and into our center. Because a lot of times when we build this chi so much, it's so intense because it's out here. But when we can bring it back in, inside, into the subtle areas in our energy field, then it feels less intense.
Yeah.
And so you can bring in as much or as little as you want.
Gotcha.
then, and it doesn't feel so, scary or
Yeah.
intense. Not scary, but
Yeah,
intense.
yeah, intense. Right, right. Okay, that makes sense. I mean, I meditate for an hour every morning and I can feel obviously the difference when I don't because I think through the meditation, right, we're pulling it in, we're grounding
Mm-hmm.
it, we're allowing it to not be so out there, and just bringing it in more into the center, feeling more centered, right? When
Yes.
we're centered, I guess what we're talking about is our chi is more centered.
Yes. And actually what I like to do is intend for it to come into the cells, into the
Mm.
the most refined area in the body. And for me, that feels really good because once you've built it up and you built it up, you feel like I'm gonna explode. It feels much better to go, okay, let's bring it into the subtle. Another thing that I have worked with, and I learned this from a temple temple dance teacher, is that when we build up all that chi, that's our creative energy.
Mhm.
And a lot of times it helps to wear bracelets, adorn yourself, like put your hair up or put a hat on,
Uh-huh.
um, and kind of keeps that, and anklets kind of keeps that energy more in, and it works beautifully, to do that sometimes. So if I feel really, really intense and all my energy is going up and out, then I'll just put my hair up in a bun and I can feel it more come back in.
Wow.
So there's different tricks. There's different, depending on what the energy is doing in that moment, there's different tricks that you can use. But I think the simplest and most profound is to just have that intention to bring it back into your cells, into your body, into your center,
Mhm.
you know.
Yeah, beautiful. Oh, I love it. I got so much out of this. This is great. Thank you. I hope you guys did too. Misha's links and all of her free gifts as well will be attached to the email that you received this interview. And Misha, thank you so much for sharing
Thank you.
your light and your love, your wisdom, and all your teachings with us. If you guys want to get in touch with her, all of her contact information will also be connected to this interview that you're watching right now. Thank you for tuning into another episode of Transforming Trauma to Triumph. I am your host, Diana Min, and we will catch you on the next episode. Bye.
Bye.